I ruined my sister's gender reveal out of spite. Straight into it, my sister had been sleeping with my then boyfriend and only revealed the fact after we got engaged. So as to save me from getting married to a cheater, and because she felt remorseful and ashamed. I broke up with him and cut off my sister, only tolerating her during family gatherings, which I rarely ever came to if I knew she was going to be there. I moved to another state for a job and to start afresh, so I've been away from home for quite a while. Months later, I was told my sister and ex-boyfriend got engaged. To say I was livid was an understatement, but I wasn't going to let them disturb me from my life. I came back recently at my mother's request since she assured me my sister wouldn't be there, only to find out she was in fact there. I managed to calm myself and pretend I was okay with everything. Deep down, I was upset. More at my mom for lying to me. It turns out they called me for my sister's planned gender reveal party, which I would never have attended had I known beforehand. I never even knew she was pregnant, but I was there already, so I had to put on a fake smile. Night came, and for the first time in a long time, my sister engaged me in a conversation and apologized for everything and wanted to make up. I wanted to bite her head off and to tell her to go to hell because the freaking audacity. But then she told me about the gender of her baby. She already knew, to try and rekindle the times where we used to tell and trust each other with everything. At some point as we were talking, I was reminded of when we used to be best friends, and honestly, I was tired of the bitterness and wanted to let bygones be bygones. I watched her plan out everything, spend a ton of money and get excited and all. But just the night before the gender reveal, my ex-boyfriend showed up and it took me right back to the past. It kept playing over and over in my head how I was betrayed by them, and I got absolutely pissed at how they were happy even after what they did to me. I realized I never had the intention of ever forgiving them, so in an attempt to get back at them, I told everyone of the gender of the baby right there and then. One glance at her and she was on the verge of tears, staring at me with a cheating scumbag. She didn't say anything and just stormed off. It was awkward. Everybody immediately knew why I did it, so it didn't come as a surprise. Nobody said anything and we all called it a night. I'm not going to lie, it felt good seeing them distraught. It brought me a sense of comfort. All their money had gone to waste since she was upset and refused to leave her room, so the reveal never happened. The house is quiet, but I can see the judgmental looks I'm getting from everyone, so I'm booking a flight back because there's no point in me being here anymore. I don't feel an ounce of regret. In fact, I feel peaceful and at ease. Am I wrong for inviting my fiance's younger sister to our wedding? I, 25 female, am engaged to my fiance, 32 male. We've been dating for 4 years before getting engaged last year. We've always gotten along well with each other's families and celebrated holidays together. Both of our families were happy when we announced our engagement. I recently found out that my fiance actually has a 15-year-old younger sister, let's call her Anne, who I never met despite her living at her parents' and me visiting often. When I asked about her during a family dinner, they glared at me and coldly said I shouldn't mention her and that I should just forget about her. The intense response kind of shocked me, so I dropped the subject. But I tried to talk about it with my fiance after we got home. He brushed it off and said that Anne doesn't want to be a part of the family, so she's not allowed to join any family events or gatherings until she decides to talk to them. Maybe because I'm generally a curious person, but something just felt off. Even at my fiance's parents' home, there are pictures of their children everywhere, but there's not a single picture of Anne. A few days ago, I contacted Anne, saying I love to get to know my future sister-in-law. We met up in a cafe and she is such a sweet girl, but it turned out she's mute. She can hear, but just can't talk. Her parents got it into their heads that she's able to talk, but chooses not to, because there's no way a child of them would have a disability. So they excluded Anne from the family until she talks. We talked. I talked, she wrote, I don't know sign language, and I feel really sorry for her. I invited her to my wedding, telling her that I'd love to see her there. When I later told this during a family dinner with my fiance's family, they blew up, telling me how I dared to talk to Anne and to revoke my invitation because if Anne doesn't want to talk to them, she doesn't deserve to be a part of the family and shouldn't be allowed to join in family events. They told me I shouldn't stick my nose in their family business. My fiancé sided with his parents, telling me to just forget Anne exists and to apologize to his parents. This angered me because I thought my fiancé would have my back, and I yelled at them that I'm not going to uninvite her and that she deserves to be treated better. Since then, my fiancé has been constantly telling me that I'm behaving like a child throwing a tantrum and to apologize to his family for my behavior. But I just can't accept the way Anne is treated. It also made me worry if we end up having children, would my fiancé treat our child the same if they end up with a disability of some kind? Some of my friends are also saying that I should just let it go and not overreact so much, that every family does things their own way, so I should just apologize and do as they tell me to prevent my relationship from suffering. I, 18 male, found out that my father, 42 male, baby trapped my mother, 40 female, with me. I grew up thinking my mother had abandoned us. That is what they always told me. He told me my mother packed up and left us when I was 2 years old. I grew up to resent and hate her, mainly because I saw how my father was working super long hours to make ends meet. I hated how my grandma basically had to raise me. When I would ask her about my mother, my grandma painted a picture of a bitter, spiteful, hateful, spoiled, and entitled woman. I felt very justified in my anger and hate for her. That's what my family told me, and I had absolutely no reason to doubt them. A few weeks ago, I found her on social media, and I was so mad. She was out there living her best life. She is a chef in a Michelin star restaurant. She travels, has a huge apartment, and apparently is married to a gorgeous man. In a fit of rage, I DM'd her, cursing her out for abandoning me to live her frivolous life and that karma would come to her. She obviously saw it. Instead of going off on me, she just asked me to meet her and that she felt like I had a right to express my anger to her in person and that she owed me as much. I was starstruck because my father said she never stood for the consequences of her actions. Without telling anyone, I agreed. She invited me to this amazing restaurant. She paid an Uber for me and everything. It was all very awkward at the beginning. I kept berating her. I was so angry. I cried a little. She just sat there and took it all in. I then asked her why she abandoned me. She then asked, "Do you really want to know the whole story? It is not nice and you will not like it. I am ready to be the bad guy in your head forever and keep my distance." I just kept pressuring her, and then she told me the real story. She told me that my father and her shortly met before ending university. At that time, my mother had said she did not want to stay in the university's town. A few months after dating, my father told her that his landlord was evicting him because the apartment was needed for immediate family use. She offered him to stay while he found something else. Months passed and he was not doing anything. Then she got a job in another country. She told my father that he could take over her apartment or come with her. They had a huge fight where my mother told him that she was not ready for this type of commitment he wanted. She wanted different things in life than him and that as much as she loved him, they weren't compatible. They stayed living together and then one day she found out that she was pregnant. She told me honestly that she was thinking of not having me. She did not feel ready to be a mom at 22. She did not feel maternal feelings. She said she was already struggling with depression and late diagnosed ADHD. My father convinced her to have me. He said he would take me because he had a right to me. He would go after her because that baby was also his. So she had me. She said the time after birth was really bad. My father was dragging out legal procedures. He refused to vacate the home. My mother said that while she felt love for me and that there were moments where she felt overjoyed, it was overshadowed by huge waves of suicidal ideation. She was scared that she was going to hurt me. She also showed me some of the court documents of the time that backed up her claims. In the end, she was so desperate that she agreed to stay with my father if he agreed to be the main caretaker. He did, but only half-assed. My mother told me that it got so bad that she tried to commit suicide around my second birthday after a particularly nasty fight where my father admitted to having tampered with her birth control. She showed me the papers of the involuntary 72 hours commitment and the legal documents where she found unfit to be a parent afterward. I felt nauseous after all of that. I would not have believed her hadn't she brought so much evidence with her. She then asked what I meant in my message that we were struggling. I told her that we were not exactly rich and that I was struggling to come up with the money to go to university in another city. She was bewildered and asked me what my father had been doing with the monthly payments she was making. I told her that we don't receive that money. Then she took out a stack of papers. Guys, she is sending child support every month. It is almost $3,000 every month. She is court mandated to pay me $1,500, but she doubled the payments out of her own will. She doesn't have to pay that amount. She wants to. She was very concerned about this and told me that she would talk to her lawyers ASAP to transfer the money to me directly. In the end, she apologized to me. She is very sorry to have put me through this. She was very sorry for not being stronger and she was very sorry for letting me grow up the way I did. She was crying. I was crying. She then told me to take my time. She wouldn't contact me again regarding the payments and that it was up to me if I wanted to see her again. That she couldn't be the mother I wanted, but the least she could do is help me with anything that I need. I hugged her. I cried. She cried. I boxed up my food and she got me another Uber home. At home, my father was not there, so I went straight to bed and left early the next morning and I'm staying with my boyfriend. Whole life is a lie. Am I wrong for shaving my niece's hair off? I'll try to keep this short. My sister has a daughter and she is 4 years old. Lexi has super curly hair and needs her hair to be taken care of constantly. My sister's husband ended up in the hospital and she has been a wreck. He has only been there a week, but she is destroyed and stopped brushing Lexi's hair. I was visiting with some pre-made meals and noticed the house and Lexi's hair was a mess. My sister wasn't doing well, so I offered to take Lexi for a bit so she can focus on her husband. I tried to fix her hair. It's just matted. I couldn't fix it. I went to a hair salon to see if they could fix it, but it would be $50 an hour for them to brush out the hair. My sister wasn't picking up, so we had her head shaved the next day. I sent pictures when it was done, and that finally got her response. It resulted in a huge argument, with her saying, "How dare I do that?" and me pointing out I wouldn't have had to if she brushed her daughter's hair. To make the timeline clear, I got her Tuesday morning, went to the salon on Wednesday, and then did the cut on Saturday. She had 3 days to respond to all of the calls and texts. This didn't happen in an hour. Lexi was fine with it. Her head was hurting, and yes, we tried everything we could to get it out. Not to mention, I called my sister and texted her multiple times and waited a whole day after the salon visit. It was painful. I wasn't going to leave her in pain since her mom wouldn't pick up the phone. The estimate the hairdresser gave me was $50 an hour, and she said it most likely at minimum would take 8 hours, so $400. That's with no break and her sitting still, which we all know a 4-year-old won't do, especially if it hurts.